All right. All right. 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 Hey all, Alex here at your home of the Music Deep Dive, and today it is time for part 11 of the record collection tour. Thanks for joining me. When we last left our intrepid hero, he was exploring the letter H in the collection, and that's what we're going to get to now. So, not going to waste any time, let's just get right on into it. With a band, California-based band that I am pretty partial to. I haven't gotten into them as much as maybe I would like, but I do think I have liked all of their stuff, so I'm just going to show it. Haim, Women in Music Part 3, their most recent album from 2020. It's a really good album. It is probably I think it's probably my favorite Haim album. Maybe a re-listen would do me good, as far as just making sure of the order, but I did think it stood out the most to me when I was listening to their stuff a while back. They're a very talented group. They're better players than I think maybe people give them credit for. And they have just kind of a lot of just a lot of energy on the stage. They're a more aggressive rock band live than I think people give them credit for. I've seen people shit on them for having rehearsed choreography and stuff like that, like pop artists will. And I don't care. I think, that if anything, that speaks to the appeal even more, how they can kind of combine both aspects of it. But yeah, so very, very good album. This, I don't know how I obtained this. I'm pretty sure it was as part of another collection. Howlin Oates, Big Bam Boom. I like the hits from Howlin Oates that I know. I think She's Gone is a fantastic song. I think Daryl Hall, both of them, but I think Daryl Hall especially is a really great singer in a lot of ways. But I have never explored a full-length album of theirs, at least not yet. I don't know that I'm in a huge rush to, but that is indeed an album that I have in my collection. So I don't have anything more interesting to say about it. I actually don't know for sure if that's even one of their more acclaimed records in general. I kind of don't think it is, but I also don't want to talk out of my ass too much, because I want to pretend like I know something or a couple things. Okay, I want to get a better copy of this at some point. This was very cheap. I think I got this for like $15, which is cheap as far as this record goes. It's very water damaged. But I had to own it, and it is cool to have like a pretty early pressing of it. This is All Things Must Pass from George Harrison. We've entered the first Beatle that we've talked about in this video, and therefore the first Beatle album. I mean, you can see like all the stains and shit there. The cover is worn. The actual record sleeves on the inside are not in very good condition. But it's not a 1970 pressing. I think this was pressed in 76 or something like that. So I will upgrade at one point, but I mean, the music, kind of hard to know what to say. It is, I think, in many ways, the closest thing to a Beatles album in terms of quality that any of the solo Beatles ever did. Apart maybe from Ram. I think Ram is the only one that kind of approaches it in this tier. But just a terrific album. The only thing that I hold against it is, I think people, and I understand why. I understand why people, when they kind of rate it, they kind of talk about it, they try to evaluate it without the Apple Jam at the very end, the jam bluesy tracks that make up the third record in that set. I understand why people don't like factoring it into the rating. I don't think you can ignore it. And I don't think it's bad by any means. I think it's pretty good. but it does rather stick out like a sore thumb, even if it is kind of bonus material, if you will. Um, those first two LPs, though, man, oh god, that's some of the best rock music you will hear from any era. Some of the best rock songwriting that you will hear from any era. Um, and unfortunately, George kind of blew his load with that one, and he never really came back from that. Uh, Not completely, anyways. I mean, we're not talking about bad albums here, really, with the other ones that I own. But it's not nearly the same quality, I don't think. Anyways, his follow-up record, Living in the Material World, a little bit of ring wear on that copy, but it's all good. It's all good. Show that little gatefold there. There we go. Material World is good. It's not even just good. I would say it is a great album. But I think it does exist on it's not trying to do as much as All Things Must Pass is, even if there maybe is a more, a starker theme, a stronger theme in Material World. All Things Must Pass is all over the place. It just happens to feature really great songwriting. And Material World, I think, is maybe trying to be a more significant record. And I'm not saying it fails in that, but I don't think that the songs on there, for the most part, are to the level of the best stuff on All Things Must Pass. But still a really strong record. Still really strong. From there, I have just over half of George's discography on vinyl. And I'm looking to get the other half at some point. I'm looking to get complete on all the Beatles at some point or another. It will happen. It'll just take some time. Here is 1976's 33 and a Third. Pretty, the sleeve itself, the cover is in really good condition for the most part. I think the record may be a little bit beat up, but 33 and a Third, after a couple of albums that I think most people are not quite as fond of. I'm not all that fond of Dark Horse. Extra Texture is pretty good. 33 and a Third feels a lot more upbeat in a lot of ways. It does feel like a return to form in some ways. It is a bit insubstantial. Again, I think we're going to find that pretty much every George album that we're going to talk about in this is relatively insubstantial, but there's some damn good songs here. Woman, Don't You Cry For Me, this song, Crackerbox Palace. Some really strong writing, really strong performances. Self-titled record from 1979. I see this record everywhere in record stores. It was, and I think it's because it sold well. It was pretty popular. And it's not hard to see why. Especially that first side. I think the side one of this record is one of the strongest sides of music he ever released. Side two, not quite as memorable, I don't think, but yeah, I mean, Love Comes to Everyone, Here Comes the Moon, Blow Away are great. Not Guilty, the Beatles outtake. Really good stuff. It's a very peaceful album, very pleasant, and I think there's something to be said for that. It's really nice. I don't know why I got this record. It is in really good condition for an original pressing, but 1982's Gone Troppo. Surprisingly, not my favorite, or not my least favorite George Harrison record. I do think I prefer this to Somewhere in England, because I think Gone Troppo is very evidently not taking itself seriously. And I think that is what makes it work, kind of, sort of. And there's decent enough tracks on here. Mystical One and Circles, I think, are pretty good. But, again, this is George just trying to kind of get out of the music business for a while. Everybody knows it. So it's very slight. It's very insignificant. But it's not, it's not not the worst piece of shit I've ever heard by any means. You can still listen to it and get your kicks off of it for sure. And now we come to the best album cover of all time. Yep. Cloud fucking 9, baby. From 87. I really like this album. I really do. It's cheesy. It's really fucking cheesy. And Jeff Lynne's production, you can take it or leave it, I suppose. But damn, I think these are, pretty good songs, energetic songs. The title track, I love the kind of back and forth between Harrison and Clapton on that one. That's What It Takes, Devil's Radio, Wreck of the Hesperus. Jeez, a lot of good songs. I'm not even mentioning the cover. I'm not mentioning the cover song, I should say. Got my mind set on you. Because most people like it. Most people know it's a bop. I don't think I need to say too much about it. But yeah, Cloud 9, really enjoyable album. Now, I think there's an interesting hypothetical where had Brainwashed not come out, would Cloud 9 have worked as a final George Harrison record? I don't know. But it does feel like a rejuvenated comeback. Like it feels like the start of something rather than the end of something. And it's kind of a shame that we only got Brainwashed after the fact. Not because Brainwashed is bad. Brainwashed is a good album. But you do feel like he had more good stuff in him before he passed. Heart. I think the only Heart record that I own, Dreamboat Annie. I mean, what to say about this band? There's a lot of great songs on this record. Again, specifically major hits. Heart were a damn good band. They were a damn good band. Anne and Nancy Wilson, both just fantastically talented at their respective instruments. I think Ann Wilson is one of the best female rock singers who ever lived. And I think it's cool that like they're both still going out there and doing it and singing, and Anne still has pretty impressive pipes for her age. They're a super strong band. I don't know their discography very well. They're actually one of the ones that have been kind of on the higher priority of my to listen list, so I'll get around to it. For sure. This is interesting. I found this in Wisconsin a few months ago. And I did not realize that they had pressed any of these onto vinyl. But I have Heat Miser with Cop and Speeder. Heat Miser, if you are not aware, is the band. It's not the band that Elliott Smith got his start in. He had been in other projects before it. But Heat Miser, I think, is the first project of his that got any sort of notice. And generally speaking, if we talk about Elliott Smith as a member of a band, Heat Miser is going to be the first thing that people bring up. For instance, he was in Heat Miser when he was recording his first couple of albums. And some of the songs, like Christian Brothers, for instance, was, I think, originally supposed to be a Heat Miser song. Now, I do not remember. I've only heard Heat Miser a little bit. Like I've heard all the records, but I've never like explored them in depth. And I don't remember being head over heels for them. It's definitely very raw energy. It is a different side of Elliott as a songwriter and as a singer than you get, which there's a lot of value in that for sure. Not music where I felt like I needed to come back to it super frequently. But we're going to get to Elliott Smith in a future video, as Elliott is actually one of the artists I'm complete on. And, I'm looking to just kind of acquire the Heat Miser stuff as I go, I suppose. But yeah, really happy to have that. And now, it's kind of unfortunate. We're getting to a string of records that I've never heard before, so I'm not going to have a whole lot to say. There are two albums by a band that I don't know if I've heard a single song from theirs. That's not true. I think I have, and I just am kind of brain farting right now, but I've never explored their stuff at all. This is Heatwave. This record is Too Hot to Handle, from 77, I believe. And then this one, the other one I have is from 1978's Central Heating. It's English disco, British disco, and I got these as part of another collection, a large collection of records that my dad's friend kind of wanted to just offload onto somebody because he was about to move. And Heatwave was one of the artists or one of the bands that was included in there. So I don't have anything intelligent to say about those. I'm sorry. I'll check them out at some point. And we'll go from there. Boogie Nights, I know. I like Boogie Nights. And then the next one is kind of a random find that I found in this independent bookstore in Madison. And it's ironic because this person is actually a member of the vinyl community, probably maybe the most famous member of the YouTube vinyl community because of the records that he puts out. I've not heard this one. This is Flyover by Derek Higgins. But Derek as a musician, just from the little snippets that I've heard, is a very fascinating, like he works in a lot of interesting lanes. He collaborates with interesting people. And I feel like any song of his that I've listened to, and I've heard it's songs I've listened to, I haven't heard albums. The guy has explored so much music and so much diverse music too that I'm never really certain where his individual songs are going to take him. So I'm very curious to hear this at some point, and I do plan on hearing it. And as an aside, like, if we're talking about the vinyl community just in general on YouTube, something that I have watched a lot of in my day, I think Derek's videos are top notch. I'm not saying he's the best at explaining why he likes a record compared to other people who were like super, super eloquent. That's not a slight on him. That's just saying there are people who specialize in that, and I don't think that's his number one thing that I love about him. I think the background knowledge is so vast, and the fact that he can pull these things from the back of his head, make these connections, and talk so enthusiastically and really genuinely about the music, the records that he's discussing. I think that's just a super cool trait. And again, just the material he's talking about, like, by far the most interesting that you will find in that community. Like, I love him, man, but I can only hear so many times about like this one Led Zeppelin record or whatever, like I can only have someone show it to me so many times before I just get bored out of my mind. So kudos to him. Keep up the good work. The Hollies. My Hollies collection is really strange. I have 3 records of theirs. The first is a greatest hits that I think I got during the early part of my collecting. So it contains most of the truly essential Hollies songs through the 60s, as well as Long Cool Woman in a Black Dress. So if you're looking for a one-stop shop, if you're not interested in exploring the albums, which I think is worthwhile to an extent, I think there are some interesting Hollies records out there. That will do you fine. That will do you fine otherwise. And then I believe one of these I found. That's right. I remember why I got this. So the other 2 albums I have are reunion Hollies records from the 70s. And this one was from the 80s. 1977's A Crazy Steal. I found this at a used record store, and someone made the note. I don't know how well you're going to be able to read that. A Crazy Steal, aka a stupid album cover. That is absolutely a fantastic description, and they are not wrong. It is very awkward looking. Like, what the fuck is this? What are they doing? What is this lighting? Alright. I don't know a single song off of it, nor do I know a single song off of the 83 one, What Goes Around, featuring Graham Nash back again. This one I know I got as part of a collection. Yeah. I think I stopped my Hollies explorations around the early 70s. Like after Long Cool Woman, I just did not have any interest in continuing it. Um, and maybe when I eventually listen to the rest of their records, that will prove correct. But I don't know. We will see. Uh, Very good album that I have a lot of nostalgia for. Bruce Hornsby and The Range, The Way It Is. This record, specifically the two big hits from it, Mandolin Rain and the title track. Um, these were on constant rotation in my freshman year dorm. So Hornsby, I really like him as a piano player. And I like him as a musician. Like the stuff and the collaborations that he's done. Seems like a guy who's very good at just kind of, I'm not saying keeping himself relevant in like a cynical way, but he keeps himself up to date with what's going on and collaborates with very interesting people. Like I know he's worked with Bon Iver a few times in recent years, which I think is really cool. And he just kind of pops up in places where you don't expect him, which is cool. All right, winding down here. This was a cool find. I found this at an independent record store in Minneapolis called Roadrunner Records. Shout out to them. This is Howlin Wolf, Moanin' in the Moonlight. This is the second Howlin Wolf album, quote unquote, after the Rocking Chair album, as I think it's called, colloquially. This is a, Howlin Wolf, I think is such a fascinating figure. So captivating as a performer. And, not to use the Rolling Stones like television appearance as like the only example of like his great performance, but I think it's the reference point most people have of how compelling of a performer he was. And God, this thing is just a phenomenal listen. Very like vocally, you can tell there's inspiration from some of the older blues guys. Like there's some Blind Willie Johnson in there for sure, but singular talent for sure, singular influence on the blues rock scene, and just really cool to be able to say I have that record. Now we're getting to this one. This is one of my favorite records of the 2010s. This is the Self-Titled by Hozier. A record that actually was not always my favorite record, or one of my favorites of the 2010s. I remember when I originally heard it that it didn't leave a super strong impact on me. But I've spent some time with it, and especially within the last like year or so. And I think the songwriting on it, the vocals just really work. Like this is, sure, you could argue it's like indie pop rock on some level, and some of the textures there are kind of based off of that. But lyrically, this man is exploring some dark themes. Some really like sensually dark themes, but also like spiritually dark, morally dark. And I think that's fascinating. I like, I'm not saying he's a poet's poet or anything like that, but I remember watching Mark Grondin from Spectrum Pulse, his review of this album, rewatching it, and maybe that's what got me to give this album a chance again. And I think he compared him to Tom Waits at one point, as far as like that kind of really gritty, dark approach. And I think that's a cool comparison. I think it works on some level. Again, I think Tom Waits is someone who will go for the theatrical, will go for kind of the carnival attitude. So he'll take it like over the top. He'll ratchet it up to 100. But Hozier stays in his lane, makes really like accessible music that is not superficial. There's depth to it. Then if I have to cite a favorite song, probably Angel of Small Death in the Codeine Scene. That one I've loved for as long as I've known it. This is an album I have been meaning to get to for quite a while. I got this as part of another collection. But it is Janis Ian, The record sleeve is split, unfortunately, between the lines. Her most famous album by far, I'm pretty sure. I have never heard it, but I would like to. She seems like a very interesting talent from the bit that I've read of her. And still going to this day, I believe, which is cool. I remember getting this record store day like 5 years ago. It was a while back. Self-titled record by It's a Beautiful Day of Columbia. I remember this being really pleasant. I'm going to be honest, it's been a very long time since I've heard this album. I'll show you the gatefold here. I remember this, and I don't even know if I would say this is a highlight of the year that it came out, 1969. Because there's a lot of great albums that came out in that year. But, I think some of the appeal was the price. I think it was only $2, and it's in pretty damn good condition for the most part. So, I don't know. I think I don't have anything intelligent to say because it genuinely has been a long time since I've heard it. But I remember it being pleasant, and I think I had heard it recently enough at the time to where I was motivated to purchase it. So I think that played a factor in it as well. And we're going to end the video today on a very positive note. This is one of my favorite indie folk albums, just in general. This is Iron and Wine with The Shepherd's Dog. Came out in 2007, I believe. Iron and Wine, this is the only Iron and Wine record I have on vinyl, which is something that I've been meaning to change for forever. Because I don't think they made a bad project. I think everything is at least very pleasant and listenable. Even, I think Beast Epic was the one I remember being my least favorite, but they have some fantastic albums. Like their first three especially, I think just absolute straight fire. This record, what I like about The Shepherd's Dog compared to everything else is that it is the most sonically interesting. This is not just straight up acoustic indie folk. There are a lot of interesting like instrumental ideas that they're utilizing. I adore House by the Sea and how it kind of utilizes all these different guitar textures, like slide guitars and stuff. And then like the very like heavy electric riff to kind of contrast it. Just super interesting textures. Carousel as well, the song right before it, has a lot of really interesting textures. Just he's playing around with stuff a lot here. And he would do that on the record following it, the name of which is escaping me right now. I remember liking that one. But I remember one of the songs, Rabbit Will Run, is the song I remember, and I remember really liking that one. But The Shepherd's Dog, to me, this one is, it's not in a class by itself quite, but it is like, to me, very, very solidly, without much question, my favorite record that they've done. I say they, it's Sam Beam with kind of a collection of musicians that he likes to work with, but this is Sam Beam's project. Yeah, not a dud on here. I think every song here is great. Even the Twilight song. The Twilight song actually is fantastic. Flightless Bird, American Mouth. But I'm just memeing a bit on Twilight, and I'm going to pretend as though I've never seen all 5 movies. So we're going to pretend that didn't happen. But anyways, I think that covers it. That covers it for part 11. I want to thank everyone so much for watching. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. As always, more reviews, more record collection tours are to come. And until next time, tell a friend. I've been Alex. You've been watching the Record Collection Tour right here at your home of the Music Deep Dive. Later.